All right, my elite programmers, you're still with me. You got your code working. You are the cream of the crop now. I envision in your future a high paying programming job because you are learning some cool stuff. Now, check this out. We talked in the last video about how our game is starting to look kind of like a game now, but there's still some things that are kind of goofy about it. We set a speed limit, but if you notice, it doesn't really matter where you are on the screen. It just all kind of you can just drive as fast as wherever you want. So let's work on that. One other thing I'll point out, if you notice between the last video and this video, my code looks different. I didn't change anything. I organized my code. One thing that you'll learn in Scratch is as you make games and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, it starts to get really hard to see everything. Now, I personally, because when you learn how to program just using like other languages like Python and JavaScript and all these things, your code will look more like you'll start at the top and work your way down. Scratch doesn't really care where you put your code, so you could literally put like you could cram all your code like into one little tiny space, and I mean it would work. But I like to be able to kind of read it, and then more importantly is if someone else comes along and wants to take my game and tweak it and add their own things to it, I want them to kind of see like, okay, so this is the start. Okay, the right and left arrow keys are together because that makes sense. The up and down arrow keys are together because they're basically the same. We're just changing a little thing. But so I grouped my code together, but I didn't add or subtract anything. I just made it look different. Now, what we're going to do is we need to add another condition, right? In the last video, we said, hey, if the car isn't going too fast or the car isn't going too fast going backwards, then you get to do something. But only if this condition is true. If it turns into false, like, oh no, their speed's already 5, then don't let them do anything. Don't let them go any faster. Well, we're going to add another condition. But this time what I want the condition to be is I want it to be, hey, if the car is on the pavement, let it go full speed. But if the car is on the grass, slow it down. Now here's how we're going to do that. Scratch kind of has a cool trick about this. We're going to add a new condition. So we're going to go to our controls. We're going to find that if dinosaur, if something happens, then do this. Now we're going to have to be really careful. This is another one of those things where if you put it in the slightly wrong spot, it's not going to work. We're going to take our if blank then, we're going to move it up here. We're going to do something real fancy. That we're going to nest our code. We're going to nest it. Nest is a good word. So if you have ever seen nesting dolls, there are these dolls that see how they all fit inside of each other, and like there's a big one and then a slightly smaller one and they all kind of open up and fit into each other. Well, we're gonna nest our code. We can put code inside of code. I'll be like, hey, here's the big code, here's a littler code, and code inside of that. So we're gonna nest all our code together to where they all kind of fit in with each other. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our if thing and we are going to stick it inside the forever loop and underneath the car speed. So it's going to go right there like that. If you put it down here, it's not going to work. If you put this inside there, it's not going to work. You have to do it exactly the way I showed you. Inside the forever loop, below the move car speed steps. Now, what's our condition going to be? This actually is going to seem really complicated. It's like the easiest thing in the world. There's this thing over here that says sensing. So, if you sense something, you feel it or see it or hear it, or taste it, your senses, right? Well, we can tell Scratch to look for things or to feel things. For example, we can say, hey, Scratch, this food truck. If you notice that the food truck is touching a certain color, then I want you to do something. Now, in our case, we want Scratch to feel if it's touching the grass. Now, this is the point where if you don't have a racetrack, if you have like the castle, if you're going to really do this, you're going to have to pause and draw the racetrack. Okay, just make it super simple. Make a gray little. Remember, I took a big gray rectangle, drew it all the way across, and then I just used little green rectangles to make the grass. Right. You can make, by the way, you could make your road red and make the grass purple. It doesn't really matter, but what does matter is that we're going to tell Scratch, hey, I want a very specific color to be sensed. Do you notice how I clicked on touching color? I clicked in here, and there's like these. Well, that's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. You make different colors, right? Well, we want a very specific color of green, so specific that I'm actually going to click this whole thing. It almost looks like a little dropper, right? Like you could suck up water in there. Oh, look at that. I'm going to hover over some of this green grass. Notice how all my grass is the same color. And I'm going to click on it. Do you see how the color turned to the exact color green? If I do that again, if I say, hey, touch the gray, it's the exact color gray. We need the exact color of the grass. If it's off by even a little bit, our code isn't going to work, okay? So I know that's sometimes a little tricky. Make sure you click on this and click on the color of your grass, and your grass needs to all be the same color, because now we're telling Scratch, hey, check this out. If you sense that the car is touching that green grass, I want you to do something. I want you to take the variable that is car speed, and I want you to set it to 1. Now, what's going to happen before I press the play button? Let's really think through our code. We know how all this stuff down here works. We're telling Scratch, when the green flag is pressed, set the car speed to 3 once, and then move on forever. And then when we get down here to the forever loop, every millisecond, every thousandth of a second, so it happens 1,000 times a second, Scratch is going to move the car forward, however fast car speed is, and Scratch is going to check and say, are we touching green? Because if we're touching green, then car speed is going to get changed to 1. Don't care what you press down here, we're going to change it back to 1. So let's test it. I press my green flag. Okay, car is driving. I can speed up and slow down and go backwards. Okay, I'm going to drive on the. Oh, no, I don't like that. Wait a second. Okay, I am mashing the up arrow as hard as I can. You can, well, don't break a keyboard, but do you see how the little up arrow thing is like lighting up? You can even see, look, it's trying to change it to 2, but as long as I'm touching that green grass, Scratch says, I'm so sorry. Mr. Rainey or whoever coded me told me that if I'm touching green grass, the speed is going to be 1. Now, if I get back on the track, oh, now I'm zooming. Oh, guess what? You just made it a lot harder for people to cheat in a race, because if they're like, oh, I'm going to cut across the infield here, that's what we call the middle of a racetrack, I'll just cut straight across. Oh, I'm so slow. Okay. Now that's a simple little thing, right? But now our game is starting to really feel like a game, right? Now we can speed up, we can slow down, we can go backwards. There's a strategy now. You can't just drive wherever you want on the screen. Ooh, we are cooking with gas. Okay, so we're getting close to being done with this game. I mean, we could add a lot more stuff, but I want to get to the point where you can be like, okay, is there a different kind of game I could make? I mean, like race cars are cool and all. Maybe I want to make an airplane game. Maybe we'll do one more video. We'll add in a couple last things and just say, hey, for your very first game that you've ever made, this is pretty good. Once again, you did not make Call of Duty or whatever, Final Fantasy 48, but hey, this is pretty good for a very first game. All right, stick around. We'll add a few more things.